Who was the dumbest person you ever met? How did you know? Girl in my class asked the professor if other countries have moons too. I had a guy at work tell me that Benjamin Franklin was the 100th president because he's on the $100 bill. I know a guy who thinks the specialty he drinks negates the negative health effects of his pack-a-day smoking habit. I know a guy who vaped mercury on a dare. We hired a girl a couple years ago. I told her where the manager's office was her first day. Second day, she asked me where the manager's office was, so I walked her to the door. Third day, she asks me where it is again. Our manager chewed out the girl who trained our new recruit for not teaching the job properly. The trainer pulled out her phone and showed the manager a picture of the girl wearing the uniform backwards and said, "Look at this. This is untrainable." New girl got fired about 3 weeks later for stealing the product because she thought she got it for free because she was an employee. Edit. Some of you are kind enough to give her the benefit of the doubt about not finding the office. Unfortunately, this office was located on the second floor, which consisted of a hallway with a single door and nothing else. It wasn't possible to get lost. Also, spelling. I remember proofreading a paper for a freshman my roommate had the hots for. It was on Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal _ but somehow this freshman didn't catch that it was satire. The opening lines of the paper are burned into my memory. Eating children would not be a good thing to do. In fact, we could say it would be bad. I used to work with the nicest person I've ever met, but he was also the dumbest. Even though he had been there over a year, he couldn't do anything beside washing dishes without someone watching over him. He just could not figure out how to do anything on his own. Someone, usually me, would have to watch over every little thing he did to make sure he was doing it right. It would have been frustrating if he wasn't the nicest damn person on earth. He was always so happy to see you and did everything with a smile on his face. Luckily he could wash dishes like a fucking beast. I'm not exaggerating when I say he could wash dishes faster and cleaner than anyone I have ever met. That's the reason he would do other stuff, is because he washed dishes so damn fast we'd have to find other stuff for him to do. His wife was normal and all his kids were doctors or engineers. They were all crazy smart. What was kind of sad is that he knew he wasn't the smartest, but he was so damn nice. I had a boss who told me that she never kept leftovers from a meal because that's how polio got started. My sister-in-law is an anti-vaxxer and believes her kid's cerebral palsy was caused by vaccines despite the kid being born with 1/4 of her brain physically missing. I asked her temp at work to weigh a couple of lever arch files for postage. She came back and told me they were 65 kilograms. I asked if it were possible that it was 6.5 kilograms, but she insisted it wasn't. We argued about it for a good 5 minutes. It wasn't until I asked her how much she weighed, 59 kilograms, that it finally twigged that these two small folders could not possibly weigh more than her. A girl in my class in middle school genuinely thought people had landed on the sun. Her explanation for this belief was to insist that the moon and sun are made of the same stuff. A friend that told me that drinking protein shakes means that my muscles are all fake and fat. I live in southern Spain. I once met a girl from the US who was here on some kind of exchange program. When I asked her how did she like Spain so far, she said, "I'm loving it. I just don't know why the plane took so long to get here. I mean, we are just a bit below Mexico. I don't know why the flight was so long." Then I told her that we were in Europe. And she didn't believe me. Her reply was, "Europe? It can't be. Everyone speaks Spanish, so we must be somewhere near Mexico for sure." She was in uni. I still don't know how or why. A girl in my sophomore year of high school who thought there were 6 months in a year. She was really nice, but very surprised and confused when we tried to set her right. He had just purchased a new high-powered BB gun. We had just finished shooting it in the backyard when he points the barrel at my face and pulls the trigger several times. I tell him to stop being an idiot and he just laughs and says it's not loaded. Then the moron puts the barrel in his mouth and shoots a BB right through his tongue and into his uvula. Edit for those asking why it shot him and not me. I was sitting down, so the end of the barrel was at a downward angle. When Genius shot himself, the barrel was at an upward angle. causing the last BB to roll down to the back of the ammo tube and into the chamber. One time my now ex-girlfriend was watching Maury Povich, one of those paternity test episodes with the classic "you are not the father" moment, and she turns to me and says, "If we ever have a baby and I found out I'm not the mother, I'll kill you." Thankfully we didn't end up reproducing. A friend of mine still thinks cancer is made up by Big Pharma. I was working retail at the time, and this lady walks in and asks me to tell her when it is 10:15 a.m. she needs to catch a bus. We were slow, so I oblige. 10:15 a.m. rolls around and I tell her, so she drops her stuff and runs out to get the bus. 5 minutes later she comes back, it's scowling, and she then lectures me on how to tell time. How much is a quarter? 25 cents. So why would you tell me a quarter after 10 a is 10:15 a? It's 10:25 am. Someone asked me if Japanese was a real language in high school. Twice. Edit. Y'all are fucking hilarious. Wish I could gild some of. A friend of mine is a sweet guy, but is overweight and balding and quite frankly, not very attractive in the face. Well, one day he lets us know that he has met a girl and she might be the one. He's in his late 20s for reference. Well, I've met some of the jewels he's hooked up with in the past, so I wasn't expecting too much. Finally meet this girl, and she is drop dead gorgeous and has a body that is incredible. I talked to her for a while, and she is super friendly and outgoing. I'm stoked for my boy. He found the best he's ever gonna find. Anyway, the night progresses, and the new couple starts talking about their plans for an upcoming trip to New Mexico, and she starts telling us how excited she is, because she has never gone to another country before. I laughed a bit, and realized she was dead serious. My friend just looked at me, and shook his head, and I knew that he knew. She was dumb as a fucking rock, but she was his dumb fucking rock. FWIW, he helped her get her passport. Half of my science class thought that the International Space Station was just some building on the ground. Few years ago in Australia, Coke changed their bottle to be a bit narrower and taller to sue less plastic. Both bottles were 600 milliliters. Girl in my class at uni adamant that the change was not to reduce plastic, but so they could put less Coke in to save money. No, they are both 600 milliliters, but the new one has less Coke in it. They referred to a spork as a devil's utensil, and said it was trying to blur gender lines in society by combining the feminine spoon and the masculine fork. She had a mug from Disneyland with the name Ronald on it. She thought you just picked a mug of the name you like, and not your actual fucking name. There was a guy who made fun of me because I was a pedestrian waiting a green light. They thought dinosaurs were fictional. My coworker was feeling lethargic, bloated, and had stopped menstruating. We told her she was probably pregnant. She decided on her own that she was anemic and started eating a dozen raw eggs every day. She had a full-term baby 5 months later. I have geography in third period and this kid thinks there's 2 Floridas. I remember a guy I knew in middle school who put money into a vending machine and then his item did not come out. Then he put more money into the machine and 2 of the item he wanted came out. He then exclaimed, "Real right. 2 for 1. My wife wanted to meet an old friend from school she hadn't seen for about 20 years. We went to dinner, and he brought his wife, who he met 2 months ago, who was a male entertainer, and her 2 kids. He was white, she was black, and he spent the whole night trying to start crap with people for making racist comments about their relationship behind their back. They weren't. When we finally got into talking, he told me about 9 jump points that exist to get off the earth. I thought to myself, oh boy, a flat earther. I've never met a real one before. But no, that's not what he was talking about. That would have been so much better than what he was talking about. He said there are 9 jump points on Earth that are essentially wormholes to other planets, and that there is one in New York City that goes to Mars, and that the American government has already colonized Mars and is hiding it from the people. And he was dead serious. My first ever girlfriend thought you had to study for an STD test. She was really white girl did not think she could get pregnant because the guy was Mexican. Swear on my life. Guy said his son was named Aaron, named after the Aaron Space Museum. SMH. Worked with a lady who I convinced you could buy full-size dinosaurs online. Also believed Denzel Washington was the president when Obama was in office, no lie. While visiting the Lincoln Memorial, I ran into an older couple discussing the inscription of the Gettysburg Address on the walls. The woman asked the man what this was in reference to, and if it was about America, and the man said something to the effect of, no, this couldn't be about America. We never had any slaves here in our country. It must be about what happened in country X. These were two Americans. I once met a guy that thought Obama was gonna take all the guns and there was going to be a civil war, so he bought around $3,000 of dried foods and water from one of those doomsday websites, and bought a few weapons. Good move, Dad. I was trying to leave my polling place after voting, but couldn't go immediately because it was pouring outside, so I got into a little conversation with one of the people running the polls that day. Started talking about what I do, it's engineering why, and she said that that's such a useful skill to have. She asked that I use that knowledge to fix all the big problems in the country, especially all the chemtrails. Tried to explain condensation, but she still didn't want to accept that they weren't dangerous, and she demanded they be eliminated. Propeller aircraft was not a viable suggestion. Nice lady, just